What's up, everybody? This is Tiana from Straight from the Crates, and today I want to talk about Lil Kim and specifically the album Hardcore, but also like kind of do a small deep dive into artists and their personas and how it may affect us. So I'm just going to get right into it. So I want to say that, Lil Kim is one of the most influential artists we've ever seen in hip hop. And I don't think we've fully processed what that influence looks like today. Because when people talk about hardcore, it's like they've frozen Lil Kim in 1996. And all of us, that's how we see her. In that moment in time, she presented, as a disruptor, as a woman in power. And in that moment, it seemed like black women had stepped into a space, specifically in hip hop, and said, I'm going to control how I'm seen, how I'm heard, and how I'm desired. And that really mattered at that time. And it changed a lot for hip hop. But what we don't talk about enough is what happens when that image keeps evolving in real time and what it starts to represent years later. Because Little Kim today is not just an artist that we're looking at. She's a legacy. She's a body, a face, and an identity that has been reshaped in front of us. And whether people want to admit it or not, that definitely has an impact, especially on Black people and Black women in particular. And I'm not saying that to tear her down. I'm saying that because we have to be honest about what we're seeing and what it does to us. Because when you look at Lil Kim now, you're not just seeing a style evolution, you're seeing colorism at its finest, you're seeing beauty standards, you're seeing a transformation that starts to move further and further away from what she originally looked like or what we look like. And for a lot of Black women watching that, whether we say it out loud or not, there's a message that's being sent to us. And the message isn't just be confident. I feel like the message starts to become, this is what you have to look like to be accepted. This is what you have to look like to be relevant, to be desired. And that's where it stops feeling like empowerment and starts feeling like pressure and hatred and self-hatred. And again, I'm not blaming Lil Kim, not her as a person, because we all know, that she's in an industry and they have the cameras, specific expectations, and Black women are picked apart, criticized, they're compared and pushed to extremes just to survive in those spaces. And those are spaces that most of us haven't even been in. So I don't want to, attack or judge her, but impact is impact, regardless of intention. And when one of the most iconic women in hip hop looks like she's constantly chasing a different version of herself, and I don't even want to say herself, just a, a different ethnicity, that does something to the people watching, especially young Black girls who are still figuring out who they are. And that's where I think where the conversation around Little Kim, it's tough because people either want to fully celebrate her or fully critique her. And both things can exist at the same time. And I can say, hardcore for me, that was a revolutionary album. I had never in my life heard a woman speak like that, or any males in particular in that way. Like I heard, Luke and the Two Live Crew and NWA, but they were, talking down on women. I never heard women, talk about themselves in that manner, but also be, uplifting what's the word that I'm looking for? And so confident. And it definitely reflected something. And to look at her now, she's reflecting pain to me, and showing us how black women are treated and how that treatment gets internalized. Because as I stated, when I listen to Lil Kim, I hear power, I hear confidence. But when I look at her today, I also see what happens when that power has to exist inside a system that's telling you you're not enough as you are. And that's just not her story. That's many women's stories. And it's also, I don't want to call it a pattern, but it's like a pattern or a script that they're sticking to. And that pattern shows up in female rap today, just in different ways. Because now you've got artists who feel like they have to be hyper visible, hypersexual, hyper everything just to compete. And again, I'm not against sexuality and or expression, but I'm just asking, who was all this for, and who benefits the most from these images? Because if the answer keeps coming back to the same industry, the same gaze and the same expectation, then we haven't really moved as far as we think we have. And this is where I want to, put in a little womanism and how it hits differently than feminism, because feminism will say this is a choice, this is freedom, and womanism is going to ask at what cost and for who. So I'm going to keep, talking about womanism and the difference between feminism and my content, because I want people to really understand what they mean and how they can be used to uplift and help each other and help our communities. And I'm sorry I digress. Let's get back back to the review. But I feel like if the cost for her was her self image and her self worth, and the constant feeling that she had to reshape herself to be accepted, then it shouldn't have never been called empowerment, or she shouldn't have never been put in that position. And no, I take that back. It just represents a whole bunch of terrible things. And I think Little Kim represents the tension and the toxicity perfectly. Like, she's both a symbol of liberation to me and a reflection of what happens when liberation exists inside a system that still hasn't fully embraced black women as they are. And that's why this conversation to me matters, because it's not just about her. It's about what we've learned from her and what we're repeating without questioning. Because a lot of people today can copy the confidence and her aesthetic and the shock value, but they're not dealing with the emotional, psychological weight that comes with it. And that's why, sometimes it feels empty to me. Not because the artists are empty, but because the foundation hasn't been fully understood. And I think if we're going to honor Little Kim, we have to, tell the full story, not just the iconic moments, not just the looks or the lyrics, but the impact that she made, the contradictions that she brought, the things that make us uncomfortable, because that's where the truth is. And you can love Lil Kim, you can respect her, you can be inspired by her, and still question what her image today represents. And especially for Black women who are still navigating a world that tells them that they have to change to be seen. And maybe the real conversation isn't about whether Lil Kim was right or wrong. Maybe it's about asking why the system she came up in still produces the same pressures, just in different forms. And until we answer that question, I feel like we're going to keep having the same conversations over and over again, just louder each time. But you guys, tell me what you think about Lil Kim, hardcore, and how she's presenting herself today. And just talk to me respectfully. And, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And also, I am not a man hater. I don't subscribe to the diaspora wars. I'm also a lover of Black people, regardless of our gender. And I'm not in the business of tearing us down. And I'm also, I'd like to say, a loving individual who has had lots of healthy and not healthy relationships with men. Never had a relationship with any women, but I have a lot of negative comments from men, you know, not listening and making assumptions about who I am. So there's a little bit about my personal life. So I'm almost to also the 200 subscribers. So help me get there and share my content with some of the other people that are in your lives. And if you find my content interesting or you learn something, just support. All right, peace.